The twin suns of the alien colony burned low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The marketplace was alive with noise. Merchants shouting about rare spices, traders displaying glowing crystals, and children weaving through the crowd with laughter. But in the middle of this busy scene, one child stood out for all the wrong reasons. It was small, frail, and walked with a heavy limp. Every step looked painful. Its skin shimmered with faint silver scales, proof that it belonged to the Emperor's bloodline, but its leg dragged weakly behind. The child tried to keep up with others, but soon stumbled, falling face first into the dirt. The crowd went quiet for a moment. Then the whispers began. "Look at it, the lame one. Such weakness in royal blood. How shameful. Better it stays hidden than shame the Emperor." No one moved to help. They stared with pity, some with disgust, others pretending not to see. From the corner of the market, a tall figure pushed through the crowd. He was not like the others. His skin was pale compared to the aliens around him, his hair dark, his clothes simple but worn. He was human. His name was Daniel, a traveler who had made this colony his temporary home. He had spent months repairing tools for villagers in exchange for food, always keeping to himself. But when he saw the child fall, he could not stay away. Daniel bent down, ignoring the whispers. He lifted the small alien into his arms. The child trembled, surprised that someone touched it with such care. Its wide, luminous eyes looked up at him, confused. "Easy now," Daniel said softly, brushing dust off the child's scales. "You're all right," the crowd gasped. A few covered their mouths. "A human? Touching the Emperor's blood? This is forbidden. Someone must report this." But Daniel did not listen. He felt the fragile weight of the child, the weakness in its legs. His heart tightened. On his own world, he had seen children injured in war, children left behind. The same pain lived in this one's eyes. The child whispered, voice trembling. Why would you help me?" Daniel gave a small smile. "Because you fell. That is reason enough," the alien child blinked. It had never heard kindness spoken so simply. As Daniel set the child gently on its feet, he noticed how it struggled to stand. The leg bent wrongly, weak and shaking. Daniel crouched low, thinking. His mind moved to the scraps of wood and metal in his workshop. He could build something. A crutch, a support. The idea took shape immediately. The marketplace grew tense. 2 soldiers walked past, tall in gleaming armor. Their glowing eyes swept over the crowd. Daniel stiffened, shielding the child with his body. If the soldiers saw what had happened, they would drag him away without question. The child clutched his hand tightly, hiding behind him. The soldiers moved on, uninterested, but Daniel knew whispers would spread. Still, he made his choice. He looked down at the child and said, "Come with me. I can help." The child hesitated, fear flickering in its eyes. No one had ever offered help before, but something in Daniel's calm voice gave it courage. Slowly, it nodded. Daniel led the child through narrow alleys, away from the marketplace. His small home stood near the edge of the colony, built from stone and salvaged parts. Inside, the air smelled of wood, oil, and iron. The child stepped in carefully, looking at the shelves filled with half-finished tools and broken machines. Daniel knelt by his workbench. "Sit here," he said, guiding the child to a chair. The alien lowered itself slowly, clutching the edge for balance. Its glowing eyes followed Daniel's every move. From a pile of wood, Daniel chose the strongest piece. He measured the child's arm length with his hands, then cut the wood to size. His hands moved with skill, carving, smoothing, and shaping. He added a metal base for support, wrapping it with cloth so it would not hurt. The child tilted its head, curious. "What are you making?" Daniel glanced back with a faint smile. "Something that will help you walk stronger." The child fell silent. Hope was something it had forgotten long ago. No healer, no medicine, not even the Emperor's doctors had cared enough to help. And now a stranger, a human, was building something only for it. Outside, the night deepened. Alien moons rose high, bathing the colony in silver light. But inside Daniel's workshop, the sound of cutting and hammering filled the air. The child sat quietly, its heart racing. For the first time, it felt that maybe tomorrow would not be filled with shame. Yet in the distance, a different sound stirred. The sharp echo of boots on stone. Somewhere in the palace, a report was being written. A human had touched the Emperor's bloodline, a crime punishable by death. And so, while Daniel worked with care and hope, an unseen danger was already moving closer. The alien child sat quietly in Daniel's small workshop, its glowing eyes fixed on the human's every move. The place smelled of wood shavings, warm oil, and metal dust. Strange tools hung on the walls, none of which the child had ever seen before. Daniel worked with steady hands, shaping a strong piece of wood into something new, something the child did not understand yet. Outside, the colony was silent. Only the distant hum of alien patrol ships cut through the night. Somewhere in the shadows, whispers about Daniel's actions were already spreading. But inside this little room, time seemed to slow, and only the soft sound of carving filled the air. The child's small voice broke the silence. Why are you doing this for me? Daniel did not look up. His hands kept carving the wood, smooth and precise. Because no one else did, he answered softly. And because you deserve to walk with strength, not pain. The child lowered its head. Others laugh at me. They say I should hide. They say the Emperor is ashamed. Daniel's grip on the wood tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Children should not carry shame, especially not for something they cannot control. The child blinked, stunned. No one had ever spoken to it like that. Daniel fitted a metal piece at the bottom of the wooden shaft, hammering it gently so it would hold firm. He then wrapped strips of cloth around the top, forming a cushion where the child's arm could rest. Each movement showed patience, as if this work was the most important task in the world. After hours of labor, Daniel finally placed the finished crutch on the table. The child leaned forward, eyes wide. It looked simple, wood, metal, cloth, but something about it felt powerful. Daniel crouched before the child. "Try it," he said, his voice calm but full of hope. The child hesitated. Its heart pounded. Slowly it stood, trembling as it took hold of the crutch. The wood was warm, strong beneath its small hand. With Daniel steadying its shoulder, the child pressed down on the crutch and took one cautious step, then another. For the first time, the lame leg did not drag hopelessly behind. The crutch carried the weight, lifting the child forward. Its eyes lit up like twin stars. A laugh escaped its lips, strange, broken, but filled with joy. I can walk," the child shouted, voice echoing through the workshop. Daniel smiled. "Yes, you can walk stronger now." The child's steps grew bolder. It circled the room slowly, every tap of the wooden crutch striking the floor like a drumbeat of victory. Each step erased years of shame, replacing it with something new, pride. But outside, beyond the workshop walls, trouble was brewing. Across the colony, alien whispers spread faster than fire. The human made a tool for the lame one. He touched the Emperor's blood. This is forbidden. Some spoke with anger, others with fear, but all agreed the Emperor must know. In the Grand Palace, messengers hurried into the throne room. The Emperor's advisors bent low, voices trembling. "Your Majesty, the human interferes with your bloodline. He built something unnatural. He must be punished." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. His voice was sharp as thunder. "Bring me this human, alive." Back in the workshop, Daniel did not yet know that an arrest order had already been issued. He only saw the joy in the child's face as it took stronger steps. That joy made the long hours of labor worth it. The child stopped suddenly, breathless but smiling. Its glowing eyes filled with tears. "No one has ever helped me like this," it whispered. "Not even my own people." Daniel knelt again, resting a hand gently on its shoulder. Sometimes kindness comes from where you least expect it. At that moment, a noise outside broke the peace, the faint clatter of armored boots. Daniel's head lifted sharply. The child froze, gripping the crutch tightly. Through the small window, shadows moved against the moonlight. Soldiers. Daniel's voice grew low, urgent. "Stay here. Don't be afraid," but the child shook its head fiercely. "They will take you. I know they will." Daniel gave a small smile, though his eyes stayed serious. "Then let them." "I did nothing wrong." The child's heart raced. For the first time in its life it felt strong. Yet fear now returned. It wanted to run, to scream, but its steps echoed too loudly against the floor. Outside, the soldiers paused, listening. One of them muttered, "The human is inside." Daniel stood tall, his shadow long against the workshop wall. His hand brushed over the wooden crutch as though it were more than a tool, perhaps a symbol. He knew what was coming, but he did not flinch. The child clung to the crutch, tears streaking down its scaled cheeks. It whispered, "Please, don't let them take you." Daniel's reply was calm, steady. "Whatever happens, remember this. Your steps are your strength now. Walk proudly no matter what they say." A heavy knock shook the wooden door. The soldiers' voices thundered, "Open in the name of the Emperor!" The workshop, once filled with warmth and hope, now trembled with fear. Daniel stood firm, ready. The child gripped the crutch tightly, its heart caught between courage and terror. The door shuddered again. The future was about to change for both human and child. The palace of the Emperor rose high above the alien colony like a mountain of stone and gold. Its towers glittered under the moons, its gates guarded by warriors in silver armor. Inside, the air was thick with incense and fear. Nobles in long robes walked through the halls, whispering in hushed voices. Every corner of the palace carried secrets, and tonight those secrets traveled fast. In a chamber lined with tall crystal windows, the Emperor's advisors gathered. Their faces were sharp, their eyes glowing with unease. One of them spoke first, his voice trembling but eager to be heard. "My lord, there are troubling reports. A human interfered with the royal bloodline. He touched the lame child. Worse, he built some device to help it walk." Gasps rippled through the room. Another advisor slammed his fist against the table. "This is forbidden. No human should lay hands upon the Emperor's line. It is dishonor." A third advisor leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "The people already whisper in the markets. They say the child can walk better now. If they believe this human has done what our healers could not, it will shame us all. The Emperor must act quickly." The great doors at the end of the hall opened and silence fell like a blade. The Emperor himself entered, his robe trailing across the marble floor, his crown glimmering with jewels. His eyes, cold and burning with power, swept across the gathered nobles. "Speak," the Emperor commanded, his voice deep and heavy. "What is this crime I hear?" The first advisor bowed low. "My lord, a human has touched your child. Worse, he built a strange tool, wood and metal, that helps the boy walk. This insult spreads through the colony. Already whispers reach the people's ears." The Emperor's hand tightened around the arm of his throne. His eyes narrowed like fire in a storm. "A human dares to touch my blood?" His voice thundered, shaking the chamber walls. The nobles bent low, fearful. One dared to speak. "Yes, Majesty. If you do not punish this man, the people will say your line needed human pity. They will say your child's strength came not from you, but from an outsider." The Emperor rose to his feet. His cloak rippled behind him like a wave of shadow. He spoke with a voice that allowed no argument. "Bring the human to me. He shall answer for this crime with his life." At once messengers hurried out of the chamber. Soldiers were summoned, their spears glowing with deadly light. The order was clear. Daniel, the human, was to be taken before dawn, but not everyone in the palace agreed. Far away in a smaller hall, a group of servants whispered among themselves. "The child smiled today," one said, eyes wide. "I saw it with my own eyes. The crutch held him up and he laughed. When has the prince ever laughed before?" Another servant shushed her, fear in her voice. "Be silent. If the Emperor hears you praise the human, you'll lose your tongue." Still the whispers grew. For years the lame child had been seen as a curse, a shadow over the throne. No healer, no machine, no prayer had cured him. Yet now, because of one human, the child walked stronger. Hope was dangerous, but it was also unstoppable. Meanwhile, in his private chamber, the Emperor sat alone. He looked at the great banners of his ancestors and felt the weight of their gaze. Honor demanded punishment. Tradition demanded silence about weakness. But somewhere deep in his chest, hidden behind stone walls of pride, a small voice asked, "What if the human did what none of us could?" He crushed the thought quickly. Weakness had no place on the throne. At the same time, in Daniel's small workshop, the child sat awake, gripping the wooden crutch tightly. Every sound outside made him flinch. He knew the palace would hear of this. He knew his father, the Emperor, would be furious. And yet, for the first time in his life, he felt proud. "I will tell him," the child whispered to himself. "I will tell father what this human has done." But fear weighed heavily. Could he speak against the Emperor's will? Could a child's voice stop an order of death? Back in the palace, as the moons climbed higher, the advisors gathered again. One spoke quietly, almost nervously. "Majesty, forgive my boldness. If the people learn the human gave your son strength, perhaps it will not be seen as shame. Perhaps it will be seen as a sign. a sign that your rule is blessed even beyond our kind. The Emperor's eyes burned. Or perhaps it will be seen as weakness. That I, ruler of worlds, needed a human to lift my child. The hall fell silent. The Emperor turned to his captain of guards. At first light, bring me the human. He will kneel before my throne, and he will pay. The captain bowed. As you command. The sound of boots echoed as soldiers prepared for the hunt. The order was sealed. And yet, as night deepened, the whispers in the palace only grew louder. Some spoke of punishment. Others spoke of hope. But all agreed on one thing. Tomorrow, when the human stood before the throne, the empire itself would tremble. The night was heavy with silence. Daniel sat at his workbench, cleaning his tools after finishing the wooden crutch. The small alien child leaned against the wall, smiling faintly as it practiced walking in circles. Each tap of the crutch against the floor echoed like a heartbeat, strong and steady. For the first time in its young life, the child felt proud. But far away in the cold palace, the Emperor's words had already sealed Daniel's fate. Bring me the human at first light. The order traveled through corridors like fire through dry grass. Messengers carried it, soldiers armed themselves, and the colony prepared to witness judgment. As the moons began to fade, armored boots marched across the stone streets. The people stirred awake, peering nervously from their homes. Some whispered, "The human will be taken." Others said, "He touched royal blood. His death is certain." A few, secretly, prayed for his safety. At Daniel's door, the sound of heavy knocking broke the calm. Bang, bang, bang! The child froze, gripping the crutch with shaking hands. Daniel stood tall, his jaw tightening. He already knew who stood outside. A deep voice thundered, "By order of the Emperor, open this door. Human, surrender yourself at once." Daniel placed a hand gently on the child's shoulder. "Stay calm. Do not fear." The child's glowing eyes filled with tears. "They will take you. They will hurt you." Daniel smiled faintly, though his own heart was heavy. "Sometimes we cannot choose what comes, but we can choose how we face it." The door burst open with a loud crack. Soldiers in silver armor stormed in, their spears glowing with energy. Their faces were hidden behind masks, their movements sharp and merciless. "Daniel the human," the captain declared, his voice cold. "By the Emperor's command, you are under arrest." Daniel raised his hand slowly, showing no resistance. The soldiers stepped forward, clamping metal cuffs around his wrists. The child rushed forward, crying out, "No! He saved me. He helped me walk. Please do not take him." The soldiers hesitated. Even behind their masks, their eyes flickered with unease. A royal child begging for a human. It was unthinkable. But orders were orders. One soldier shoved the child aside. "Move away, little one. This does not concern you." The child stumbled, clutching the crutch tightly. Its small voice trembled but carried across the room. "It does concern me. He is my friend. If you take him, I will tell Father the truth." The captain froze. A murmur ran through the soldiers. To defy the Emperor's child was dangerous, but so was disobeying the Emperor's command. The silence grew sharp. Finally, the captain growled, "The Emperor will hear you. But the human must come." The soldiers dragged Daniel forward. His feet scraped against the stone floor, but his eyes remained calm, unafraid. The child tried to follow, but the crutch slowed its steps. Still, it refused to stop, limping behind them with determination. Neighbors peeked from doorways, watching as Daniel was taken through the streets. Whispers spread quickly. "The human is arrested. The Emperor himself will decide his fate." Some bowed their heads in pity, others shook with fear. A few secretly felt admiration. As they passed the market where Daniel had first lifted the child, the same crowd now gathered to watch. The child's voice rang out desperately, "He is not guilty. He is kind." But no one dared to speak in support. Fear of the Emperor held their tongues. Daniel glanced back at the child, giving a small, reassuring nod. "Be strong," he whispered, though his voice barely carried over the soldiers' march. The palace gates loomed ahead, tall and golden, guarded by warriors twice the size of men. The soldiers forced Daniel inside, chains rattling with every step. The child struggled to keep up, its small form dwarfed by the towering gates, but its courage pushed it forward. Inside the grand courtyard, thousands of nobles had already gathered. They wanted to see the human who dared touch the Emperor's blood. Their whispers filled the air like a storm. "Look at him, walking in chains." He should never have been allowed here. His punishment must be death. The child, breathless but determined, shouted above them all, "He is innocent!" Gasps spread through the nobles. Their glowing eyes turned toward the child, the Emperor's son, standing with his crutch in full view. The sight silenced even the loudest voices. At the far end of the courtyard, massive doors creaked open. The throne room awaited. The Emperor sat beyond, waiting like a shadow of judgment. The soldiers shoved Daniel forward, forcing him to his knees before the throne. The child limped after him, ignoring the stares of the nobles. The Emperor's deep voice shook the hall. "You dare touch my bloodline? You dare build this thing?" His eyes burned with rage as he pointed at the crutch. "Do you think a human has the right to fix what even my healers could not?" Daniel lifted his head slowly. His calm eyes met the Emperor's furious gaze. "I did not think of rights. I only thought of a child in pain." The hall fell silent. The nobles leaned in, waiting. The child's breath caught in its throat. The Emperor's face twisted with fury, but something darker, something uncertain, glimmered in his eyes. And so, in that moment, with chains on his wrists and soldiers all around, Daniel stood taller than all of them, not with strength of arms, but with courage. The Emperor leaned forward. His words were final, cutting the silence like a blade. "Tomorrow, this human will face judgment." The hall erupted in whispers. Some cheered for punishment, others hid their doubts. The child gripped its crutch tightly, knowing the battle was only beginning. The throne room of the alien palace was vast and filled with shadows. Golden pillars rose high, decorated with carvings of battles won by past emperors. The ceiling glittered with thousands of lights, but despite its beauty, the room felt cold and heavy. At the center, on a massive throne of black stone, sat the Emperor. His crown gleamed like fire, his eyes sharp and merciless. Daniel was forced to kneel on the marble floor, his wrists bound in iron chains. Soldiers stood around him, their glowing spears ready. The nobles gathered in silence, eager to see how the Emperor would deal with this human. Every eye was on him. The Emperor's voice boomed across the hall. "Human, you dared touch my son. You dared build some strange tool to hide his weakness. Do you not know what you have done?" Daniel lifted his head slowly. His voice was calm, though chains rattled at his wrists. "I saw a child in pain. That was all I saw, and I did what I could to help." Gasps rippled through the hall. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor so directly, least of all a human. The nobles whispered angrily, "How dare he speak so boldly? He should be silenced at once." The Emperor rose to his feet, his robe flowing like a wave of darkness. His fury shook the very air. "You shame me before my people. You make them whisper that my son is strong because of you, not because of the blood of emperors. This is an insult I cannot forgive." Daniel met his blazing eyes without fear. "Strength is not in blood. It is in heart. Your son walked because he had courage, not because of me. I only gave him a tool. He did the rest." The Emperor's jaw tightened. For a moment, silence fell heavy on the hall. His advisors leaned close, urging him. "Crush him now, Majesty. Show no weakness. The Empire watches." But before the Emperor could answer, the sound of wooden tapping echoed across the chamber. Tap, tap, tap. All heads turned. The child entered, walking slowly but proudly on the crutch Daniel had built. Gasps filled the room. The lame child of the Emperor, long mocked in whispers, was now crossing the hall on steady steps. The child's small voice rang out, clear and trembling. "Father, stop." The Emperor froze. The hall went silent. The nobles dared not even breathe. The child walked forward, each step echoing like thunder in the silence. It reached the center of the hall and stood between Daniel and the Emperor. Its glowing eyes burned with courage. "Father," the child said, "this human saved me. He gave me hope when no one else would. He is not guilty. He is kind." The nobles gasped again, shocked at the boldness of the child. No heir had ever spoken so openly in the throne room. The Emperor's hands clenched into fists. His anger warred with something deeper. Fear, pride, confusion. His voice thundered. "You dare defend him? You dare stand between me and my judgment?" The child trembled but did not move aside. "If you punish him, then punish me too, because without him, I would still be crawling in shame. Without him, I would still believe I was worthless." The words cut through the hall like a blade. Some nobles lowered their eyes. Even the soldiers shifted uneasily. Daniel's voice came softly behind the child. Your Majesty, I never wished to dishonor you. But if compassion is a crime, then yes, I am guilty. The Emperor's fury erupted. He stepped down from the throne, his robe sweeping the floor. His voice shook the walls. Do you think your words can sway me? Do you think you can teach me, ruler of the Empire, what strength is? He drew close, towering over Daniel, his burning eyes inches away. For a heartbeat, it seemed he might strike him dead on the spot. But then his gaze flicked to the crutch in the child's hand, to the trembling strength in his son's eyes. And in that moment, the Emperor's anger was tangled with something else, doubt. The nobles, sensing his hesitation, grew restless. Majesty, end this now, one cried. Show no weakness, shouted another. The Emperor raised his hand, silencing them all. He looked down at Daniel, then at his son. His voice, though still fierce, carried the weight of a struggle inside. Tomorrow, he declared, this human will stand trial before the entire Empire. Let all see his crime. Let all witness my judgment. The hall erupted into whispers. Some cheered. Some feared. But all knew tomorrow would decide not only Daniel's fate, but the future of the Emperor's son. The soldiers pulled Daniel to his feet, chains rattling as they dragged him back toward the dungeon. The child cried out, reaching forward, Father, please! But the Emperor turned his back, his robe sweeping like storm clouds. His voice was final. Take him away. And so the throne room fell silent again, but the silence was heavy. Heavy with questions, heavy with fear. For the first time in years, the Emperor's wrath had been challenged, not by armies, not by rivals, but by a human and a child. The morning sun rose over the alien capital, casting long golden beams across the palace walls. Drums echoed in the streets as citizens gathered, called by the Emperor's order. Today a human would face judgment before the entire empire. The great courtyard filled with nobles, soldiers, merchants, and commoners. Whispers spread like smoke. They say he dared to touch the Emperor's son. They say the child walks now, but only with the human's help. Surely the Emperor will crush him for such an insult. At the center of the courtyard stood a raised platform. Daniel was brought forward in chains, his head held high, though soldiers pushed him to kneel. His calm eyes swept across the sea of alien faces. He saw fear, curiosity, even hidden sympathy. Above them all, on the grand balcony, the Emperor sat on a smaller but mighty throne, robed in crimson. His presence alone silenced the crowd. His voice thundered, People of the Empire, you stand witness. This human touched royal blood and in his arrogance built a false strength for my son. What say you, should he live or should he pay with his life? The crowd roared. Many shouted for punishment, others stayed silent. But before the Emperor could continue, a new sound cut through the noise. Tap, tap, tap. The wooden crutch struck against the marble as the Emperor's son stepped onto the platform. The crowd gasped. Some bowed their heads, shocked at the sight of the lame child walking into the open. Never before had the prince shown himself so boldly. The child's voice, small but strong, carried across the courtyard. Father, stop this! The Emperor's eyes widened in fury. You dare speak before the Empire? Go back, but the child did not move. Its glowing eyes blazed with determination. No, I will speak and they will listen. Gasps rose. The crowd fell into stunned silence. No heir had ever spoken against the Emperor in public. The child turned to the people, lifting the crutch for all to see. This human gave me no false strength. He gave me hope. For years I crawled, shamed, mocked, hidden from your eyes. None of you helped me. Not the nobles, not the healers, not even the Emperor. Only he did. The words struck like lightning. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others exchanged uneasy glances. The child continued, voice trembling but louder now. Do you see this crutch? It is not weakness. It is courage. It is proof that I can walk, proof that I can stand, and I will stand here today between him and your judgment. Daniel's heart tightened. He wanted to tell the child to stop, to stay safe, but the fire in its voice held him silent. The Emperor rose, his anger like thunder. You disgrace me before the people. You defend a human over your own bloodline. The child's hand shook, but it did not back away. Father, what is a ruler without compassion? What is strength if it cannot protect the weak? If kindness is shame, then I choose shame. The courtyard erupted with noise. Some shouted in outrage, others in awe. For the first time, voices rose in defense of the human. Perhaps the boy speaks truth. The human gave him more strength than the palace ever did. Is compassion not a virtue? The emperor's advisors rushed forward, bowing low. Majesty, silence the child at once. If the people hear this too long, they will lose respect for your word. But the emperor did not move. His eyes burned, locked on his son. He saw the trembling legs, the weak body supported by wood, and yet he also saw courage stronger than armies. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low but steady. Your Majesty, I never meant to defy you. But sometimes the truth is louder than chains. The child raised its chin. If you punish him, then punish me too. For his crime is mine. He gave me strength, but I chose to use it. If he dies, let me die with him. The entire courtyard froze. Even the soldiers looked at one another, uncertain. The emperor's wrath shook within him, but doubt cracked through its armor. Never before had his child spoken with such fire. Never before had the people dared to question him. And all of it was because of one human and one simple crutch. The emperor lifted his hand. The crowd held its breath. Would he strike? Would he silence? Would he kill? Instead, he spoke in a voice heavy with storm. Tomorrow, the final judgment will be given. The empire shall see where true strength lies. The crowd erupted into shouts. Some cheered, some protested, others wept. Soldiers dragged Daniel back, but the child clung to the crutch and stared up at the emperor with defiance. The battle was not over. In fact, it had only begun. The next morning dawned with heavy clouds covering the twin suns in gray light. It felt as if the entire sky carried the weight of what was about to happen. Drums beat across the city once more, calling every citizen to the grand courtyard. Today the emperor would deliver his final judgment. Daniel was led out in chains again, his steps steady though his hands were bound. Soldiers flanked him on both sides, their silver armor gleaming coldly. Whispers ran through the crowd as he passed. Today is the end of the human. Perhaps the emperor will show mercy. No, he never shows mercy. But the child spoke yesterday. Maybe things will change. The courtyard filled until no space remained. Nobles in jeweled robes, merchants with worried eyes, and commoners clutching their children all waited. On the high balcony, the emperor appeared, his crimson robe trailing behind him like a river of fire. His gaze swept over the people, hard and unyielding. Daniel was forced to kneel again at the center platform. His chains rattled against the marble, but his face remained calm, unbroken. Then came the sound that silenced all whispers. Tap. Tap, tap. The child appeared once more, walking with the crutch, his small frame trembling yet proud. Gasps filled the courtyard. Never had the emperor's son been seen so openly. Never had he stood with such courage. The emperor's voice thundered. My people, yesterday you heard this human's crime. Today you shall see my judgment. For he dared touch royal blood, dared to build a false strength, dared to shame the throne. The crowd stirred uneasily. Some waited eagerly for punishment. Others silently prayed for mercy. The child stepped forward, raising his voice for all to hear. Father, once again I stand before you. This man is no criminal. He gave me what no one else would, hope. If you punish him, you punish me as well. The courtyard trembled with shock. The nobles whispered furiously. Does the boy not fear death? He speaks against the emperor before all. This is madness. The emperor glared at his son, his eyes blazing.
Do you truly defy me?
Do you shame your blood in front of the empire? The child's small hands gripped the crutch tighter. His voice shook, but he did not stop. I do not shame us. I honor us, because strength is not silence. Strength is not cruelty. Strength is standing even when the world wishes you to crawl. That is what this human taught me. For a moment, the emperor faltered. His breath grew heavy. His hand clenched around the arm of his throne. He remembered the years of shame, the years he had hidden his son from sight. And now, before the entire empire, that same child stood tall because of a simple wooden crutch. The advisors stepped forward quickly, bowing low. Majesty, the crowd is restless. Crush the human now before doubt spreads further. End this. But the emperor's gaze was fixed on his son. The boy's glowing eyes burned with tears, yet his voice rose again. If you kill him, father, then know this, I will never forgive you. You may silence him, but you will silence me too. The courtyard fell into dead silence. Every soul waited. Even the soldiers seemed frozen, caught between orders and conscience. Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm but strong. Your Majesty, if my life brings your son courage, then it is worth giving. I ask for no mercy. Only this, do not let fear guide your rule. Let compassion guide it instead. His words echoed across the marble, sinking deep into the hearts of those who listened. The emperor's face twisted with rage, then with pain. His voice shook the courtyard. "You dare lecture me? You dare show me my weakness?" But when he looked again at his son, standing, trembling but unbroken, something inside him cracked. He saw not weakness but strength, not shame but pride. And for the first time in many years, the emperor felt the weight of being not just a ruler but a father. Slowly, he descended from his throne. Each step echoed like thunder. The people held their breath as he approached the platform. Soldiers shifted nervously. Nobles leaned forward in fear. The emperor stopped before Daniel. With a single motion, he raised his hand. The crowd expected death. Instead, the emperor struck the chains, shattering them. The metal fell to the floor with a sharp clang. Gasps erupted across the courtyard. "This human," the emperor declared, his voice heavy, "will not be punished. He will be honored. For he gave my son the strength to stand, something no healer, no noble, no warrior could do." The courtyard exploded with noise. Some cheered, others cried out in disbelief, but none could deny what they had seen. The child rushed to Daniel's side, tears streaming down his face. "Father," he cried, looking up at the emperor, "you have done what is right." The emperor placed a heavy hand on his son's shoulder. For once, his voice softened. "Perhaps I have much to learn," but not all were pleased. In the shadows of the nobles, angry eyes glared. Whispers of rebellion stirred, whispers of betrayal. Mercy had saved Daniel, but mercy had also planted seeds of unrest. As Daniel stood free, the story of the human and the crutch spread like fire across the empire. A new chapter had begun, one filled with both hope and danger, and the people would never forget the day the emperor's wrath turned into mercy. Because of a child's voice,